Hello, just to set the context for this video, this is another one of the videos in my personal YouTube channel for dating, online dating apps, and the purpose of this specific video is just to talk about both my Myers-Briggs personality last and first, and some things I like to do for fun. So, you know, the video on love is absolutely deep and profound and personal, and this one's just light and informative, just that, you know, not every video in this thing is heavy. And these are some things, you know, that maybe we could talk about. I love hiking, camping, a museum, an art exhibit, movies, absolutely. Action movies on days that I'm drained, romantic comedies that are clever or deep. I do enjoy movies with subtitles, provided they're all quality. A quality binge-worthy TV show. I'm doing Ted Lasso right now. Vikings, I've been in rewatching Breaking Bad, Outlander. Flight Attendant looks good. Listening to other people's taste in music. This is one of my favorites, where you play a song and then I play a song and then you play a song and then we get, you know, oh yeah, no, that was, 4x4 trails, travel almost anywhere, going to the cabin, my cabin up by the rim, board games, poker, not lately. I have won money in some really, really crappy poker tournaments in Vegas. Cooking dinner as a treat or with my boo. When I was younger, I used to snow ski. Okay, now, a whole bunch of those things I hardly ever do anymore, but yeah, I mean, that's an example, right? Okay, so pick any one of those. Now, what are my guy time activities? Like, I play chess. You don't have to. My sons and I play a really complicated board game about World War II. It's been modeled off of World War II. It's kind of like, you know, a super duper nerdy version of Risk. It's called Axis and Allies. You don't have to. I watch football games. On occasion I go. I definitely watch NFL playoffs. You're always welcome to join me, but I'm actually more of a Sun Devils football fan than anything else. And I stop watching football when ASU sucks. When I come to the conclusion that the season for ASU is lost. So I do hope I hope you do things that match, and I do also hope you do some things that are different. When I say you, I'm talking about the person that I really want to spend most of the rest of my life with, in terms of the focus of my romantic life. I mean, it doesn't have to be just one person, although that's my preference. And it doesn't have to be marriage, but, you know, if that's what works best, then let's do that, you know. But it has to be right. So when I say you, I'm talking to that one person. And over time, I hope we teach each other to do things that we each never did before. You know, where I learn about things that you do that I don't do, and vice versa. Also, I have a passion project, and it involves becoming the world's best civic teacher on YouTube. That's actually why I have like all these lights set up, and why I have the desk already set up with the angle, and that's what the American flag in the back is for. It's part of that civics teacher stuff. Here's the important part. If you can't listen to me talk about the videos that I'm making, which means that you can't listen to me talk about economics and politics and government and policy. You don't have to like those things. You don't have to be interested in them. You just have to like tolerate and listen to me talking about them, and actually over time develop somewhat of an interest because you care about me. If you're like, no, I can't care about those things, don't make me, then I can't imagine a universe where within the next 3 or 4 years you and I are a good fit. Because one of my goals in life, like aside from my children, I want my legacy in life to be the greatest civics teacher on YouTube, at least, you know, for a year or two, if other people overtake me. And still, you know, a solid contributor to how the world comes to know and understand and improve in civics, because we need it. So if me talking about those things will be a complete bore and chore for you, then that's a red flag. Not for me. You need to make that decision. All right, so lastly, my Myers-Briggs. I'm an ENTP, where the E and the N are strong and the T and the P aren't that strong. Now, somebody was telling me Myers-Briggs was all about behaviors. Like, are you an extrovert or an introvert? So the E is an extrovert, right? Do you intuit things, which is an N, and to make holistic decisions, or are you a sensory, data-driven decider? I'm not sure if I really understand that dimension, and I'm sure people will let me know if I don't. But I'm more of a, like, you know, I take a lot of data, but I also kind of, like, it has to fit holistically. I won't only use data. Do you think or feel your way to decisions? Now, as an engineer, I mostly think, but I hope you can see through these videos, if you watch them all, that I'm a really feeling guy. And so, you know, I have a bias towards thinking, but I mean, there are clear times when feeling will just totally make the decision. And do you judge, decide them, and move on quickly and put the decision in the past? Or P, I don't know what P is, that you kind of deliberate over them and you think about your past decisions and revisit them, even though they're already in the past, and like, did I make the right? Yeah, no, that's me. That's me. I like to have as much information as possible to make the judgment, and that often leads to delaying and deferring decisions, which is bad. But okay, so if you're going to remember one specific thing about me from this video, remember then this: I am interested in both our similarities and our differences. And again, I'm talking to the one particular person, but anybody who swipes right, I guess. And both are important because both are like, it's not just about what we like, it's about how we grow. And that's the grow is from the differences, right? So I want to, off script here, but I'm totally fascinated by who you are. One of the reasons why I'm doing this is I'm dying to get to know the person who sees these videos and says, yeah, this is the guy I know I want. Or, you know, I want to get to know this guy even more. I want to spend time talking to this guy. I'm excited to meet that person. That person probably, and I probably have a good chance of being able to make things work. And I'm not looking for a perfect person. I'm looking for somebody with whom we can work towards being perfectly awesome for each other. And that's yeah, anyway, okay. So this was light mostly, but I still managed to make it deep. All right. The next video. So if you're still interested in learning more about me, pick another video, because this one's going to end, and there will be a bad joke near the end, but there's going to be little things that pop up somewhere on the screen, depending on how YouTube does this. So the next video is encouraging people not to be shy in dating apps, or at least just to respond or to say something. And, you know, if you have to, just block the dude and move on. But it's better, I say this, it's better to have loved and lost than never have loved at all. But that's more than, the next video is more than that. And then another video is about this little piece of jewelry that I wear called an intention stick, about living your life with intention and purpose, and then putting some words in here and putting it close to your heart so that you are trying to live your life as a specific choice. There's a video on having a growth mindset and what that involves. The last video is probably the most profound one. It asks the question, what does it mean when someone says I love you, and leaves you to figure out that answer in life while sharing some of my thoughts. Okay, so pause this video, rewind it, or YouTube will start picking videos for you. And since this is a really small channel, I'm guaranteed the very next one will have very little to do with me if you don't pick it. So, okay, the engineering joke. All right. So engineers are precise, and mathematicians, they're even more precise. And mathematicians look for truth, and engineers are satisfied with close enough. But it's mostly true, but it doesn't need to be 100% true for me to start using it, is kind of the way engineers look at it. Maybe just 97 or 98. And mathematicians will look down their nose at engineers for their close enough attitude. So I happen to, not only was I an engineer when I started out my career, but I also have a degree in math because I want to be a math teacher. And yeah, so here's a slightly risque joke that makes fun of two pieces of me. All right, and again, if you can't laugh at yourself, you don't have any right to laugh at anyone else. So here comes a joke. So this college psychology grad student has an experiment that they want to run, and they create this room with this enormous contraption, and they get one math student and one engineering student, and they pick them as both like highly competitive, very intellectual, and total uber nerds of each of their major. And they put them in this contraption at one end of the room, and it's a really, really, really big room, and the floor is missing or something like that. They're suspended in these cages in this contraption. And if you go through all these physical exertion to try to move like levers and knobs and stuff, after about 5 minutes of doing this, you can make the cage move halfway. Now, at the other end of this room in the psychology experiment on this engineer and math student, both of whom are male, are inebriated and morally uninhibited females in skimpy outfits. I know it's a little bit misogynistic joke. I mean, I'm not justifying it, I'm just saying, yeah, I know what right and wrong is. Sometimes I playfully push the boundary in an environment where people are understanding that we're human. So really, you'll see how it plays out in the end. But so one of the things that you must know about mathematical series, if you add a half and then cut that, going from -1 to 0, and first you go up a half. So you're going to go, or let's take it from 1 down to 0. First you go from 1 down to 0, you go halfway, you go down to a half. Now, the next time you go halfway, you don't go all the way to 0, you go half of the remaining distance. So you go from 1/2 to 1/4, and the next time you go from 1/4 to 1/8, and then the next time you go from 1/8 to 1/16. And what's happening is that number on the bottom, it went from 2 to 4 to 8 to 16, it's getting bigger, so that means the fractions are getting smaller, and it's getting closer and closer and closer to 0, but it never actually gets there. And so when they start the experiment, the psychology student says, hey, it's a grad student, he says, hey, this experiment starts now and it ends when one of you reaches the other end. And the mathematician says, oh, I should have brought a book. And he just, leans back and does nothing. And the engineer looks around, studies the contraption, looks at the end, looks at the contraption, looks at the math student, looks at the contraption, looks at the other end, and then starts vigorously working through the levers. Like, okay, this one first, okay, and he's figuring it out, right? And he's figuring out how to make the machine move. And then the mathematician looks over and says, you idiot. And the engineer ignores him and keeps, moving levers. So the engineer is working the levers, and then after a while, he moves halfway. And, the math student is startled by the fact that it moves, but still treats it like whatever, because he knows that going from a half to a quarter to an eighth to a 16th to a 32nd to a 64th to a 128th and keep on going, you'll never get to 0. You just never get there. And the engineer is still working at it. And he says, are you proud of yourself? To the engineer. And the engineer ignores him, and he just keeps working the levers. And the mathematician is starting to question himself a little bit, but the engineer is just, working it, and he's sweating, he's grunting, and says, I'm relaxing over here. You haven't figured out that the joke's on you. And the engineer keeps going, and after a little bit, so now it's not, there's a whole room, and the engineer first was half of the way there. Now he's 3/4 of the way, and only 1/4 of the distance remains. And the mathematician screams out to him, you're never going to get there. And the engineer, keeps going. And the mathematician is taunting him now. Did you fail calculus? You're never going to get there. And the engineer stops and he turns at him and he smiles and he says, yes, but I'm going to get close enough to have fun.